Hey everybody, Rosematter here, and welcome to part 62 of my Umineko Let's Play. We last left off starting episode 6, and right off the bat, it was not what I expected. I don't know what I expected, to be honest. Definitely not what I got, which is opening up with ERIKA apparently marrying Badler and claiming that basically she is one and he is like her slave. And then there was like the flashback to Badler making this game and creating Beato, but she's a very different Beato than we know. She's much more childlike, demure, basically everything that the original Beato is not. And also, Angie has returned. Angie is back in. She has become the reader for Featherin, who I said was from Higurashi Sotsu, but that's Ue, or however you said it, but they looked very similar. But she is the witch of theater going, and she wants to hear a good story, so Angie is essentially reading the story that Featherin slash Hachijo has slash Badler has created, and it's, yeah, just completely wild right off the bat. So I want to get more into this and see like what culminated with the ending, with Badler seemingly have lost despite being the game master. So let's get back into this and let's see what happens next.
Beatrice!
親方様、ようこそお越しを。ベアトリーチェ様がお待ちでございます。どうぞこちらへ。
This place was a villa set aside for Beatrice's use. It was a sacred site for her only, built so she could spend her days without being affected by the outside world. My heart began to race. I'm so glad she was able to revive, and that everything's okay. Beato is a personification of the rules, so even though she was destroyed once, it is possible for her to be reborn again. Badler had quickly succeeded in reviving Beato's body, but he had had trouble summoning her soul back. However, during the time he had spent immersed in the creation of the 6th game, she had woken up. And this had happened 3 days ago. Badler let himself be led into the dining hall. Oh, he's gonna be disappointed when he sees the weird Beato. The dining hall had been set up for his and Beato's use. It existed so they could enjoy some black tea while discussing the truth, now that he had finally reached it in its entirety. I want to tell her. I want to tell Beato that I found the truth. Badler couldn't hold back his excitement over this miracle he had been granted. That Beato was waiting for him in the dining hall to hear what he had to say. Like, in any other game, this would be the end, right? This would be, like, the culmination of everything. It was like, no, we still have a whole couple chapters left to go. There's a lot more to the story.
Beatrice はどうなんだ? 変わりないか?
Yeah, about that.
できそうか?
それはもうお元気でいらっしゃいます。親方様がおいでになるのをずっとお待ちでいらっしゃいましたとも。
Oh yeah, Kosawa didn't say anything about, like, not the same as normal, though.
食堂にいるのか? 飯でも食ってるのか?
He's so cute. He's, like, so excited. It's like he's got a little date. He's just, oh, so sweet.
ああ、いいさ。何でも構わない。
驚きますよ。
ベアトリーチェ!
Like, does Kumasama think that he'll like this new Beatrice? When he swung open the doors to the dining hall, Badler was greeted by a wonderful sight. Though the food laid out on the table wasn't particularly sensational, it was arranged beautifully, and a champagne bottle stood there waiting. Then, the person clad in that familiar dress with the beautiful golden hair bowed deeply in greeting.
Beatrice.
Right off the bat, he's like, something's wrong. She would never bow to me.
私に姿を与えてくださり、誠にありがとうございます。
Oh, I guess I gotta check the, Alright, Beatrice, a new witch reborn from the rules. She has not lived 1,000 years, and her behavior is vastly different from how it once was. She is a witch who does not even know how to use magic. However, she has no fear of magic circles or spider webs. It's almost as though she is just a human. She adores Badler and considers it her purpose to devote herself to him. It's almost as if she is just a human, a witch who does not know how to use magic. So, like, I think this is, like, the closest to the real Beatrice. Like, this is basically her before everything happened to her. This is like the untainted Beatrice. And Badler, the endless sorcerer and final game master, he is the ruler of the game board and the territory lord. To prove he has won Beato's game, he must take on the position of game master. By succeeding in this, his victory will be acknowledged, and Beato's game will reach its end. Because he knows the whole truth, he exists on a higher plane than all others. Alright, so we'll check out the other ones here. With the victory of the human side, she should have achieved victory as well, but she seems unable to accept it. It appears she's less concerned with who actually wins and cares more about how brutal an end might be reached. Yeah, she's not happy that Badler found it through love. Therefore, hostile towards Badler, as he tries to end this peacefully, she attempts to use ERIKA to ruin this final game. Lambda Delta, because the end of the game has been assured with the victory of the human side, she no longer stands in opposition to anyone. So she's like the objective view. As a previous game master, she also knows the truth and has taken a position of non-interference. Now she simply acts as a spectator, enjoying her beloved Burn's contorted expressions. Alright, ERIKA participates in Badler's game as the human side player. She possesses numerous skills that qualify her to call herself a detective, and these can be elevated to the level of red truth when acknowledged by her master Berncastel. Whether she wins or loses, this will be the last game, and there will be no further use for her. Alright, I think that's the same. Alright, so everybody else seems to be the same, so we'll get out of here now. Aww.
いいんだ。そんなのは。よかった。ベアト。
This music is so sweet. It just seems like this is the culmination, but it's not. And then he's gonna realize that she's very different and there's something horribly wrong. Badler rushed up to Beato and hugged her tightly, just to make sure her body wasn't just mist or an illusion.
俺はお前の謎をちゃんと解いたぞ。なのにそれを伝える前に消えちまいやがって。
私はここにいます。消えたりなんかしません。
やめろよ、そんな喋り方。恩を着せるつもりなんか全然ない。とにかくお前に謝りたい。そして語らいたい。何から先に口にすればいいかさえわからない。
私がお父様に謝られる。
Oh yeah, there's the
何もありません。
dropping that father on him. That's gonna be like record scratch. What?
私はただお父様のお役に立てればそれで幸せなのです。
Ugh, there's just like the weird implications of like, Father, I'm glad to be of service to you. Like, ew. Maybe I'm looking too much into it. I don't know.
ベアト。
ベアトリーチェはお父様のために生まれてきました。
I was born for your sake. Ugh, like I know she's just like what's the word? Like she's new to this. Like she's like a blank slate almost. But it's still weird. It's still weird.
どうかあなたの力にならせてください。そしてお父様、第6のゲームの完成、誠におめでとうございます。
だからそんな喋り方やめろって。うさんくさくてたまらねえぜ。
Yeah, agreed.
この喋り方ではお気に召しませんか？部長法をどうかお許しください。
お気に召しませんかってことはねえが、らしくねえぜ。
Okay, so I'm thinking. So when Rosa met that Beatrice at Kumadorian, did she speak like this? I feel like she did have like kind of an innocent, childlike way of speaking because she was like basically in prison there. She had no real concept of the outside world. So I guess this is like the truest form of Beatrice. If we're talking about the one that you know, before she died, before she fell off the cliff. Like, is this her?
やっぱお前はいつもの口調がぴったりだ。
Now I kind of want to go back to that chapter and like listen to it again and see if she has the same voice. And to see, you know? Beato smiled vaguely. To Badler, it probably looked as though they were both smiling over the same joke. However, Beato's smile was literally vague and uncertain. After all, she didn't know how she was supposed to talk.
それよりベアト、一体これは何の冗談だってんだ？まさか大ベアトリーチェ様自らが手料理を作ったってのか？
第6のゲームが完成されましたと聞き、ささやかですがねぎらいの席が設けられないかと思いまして。
ベアトリーチェ様がそれはもう大層頑張られてお作りになられたんですよ。私は一切手伝っておりませんとも。ええ。
The food set on the table really was modest and inexpertly made. You could tell by looking at it that Beato, who wasn't particularly skilled with cooking, had given it her all when making it. However, signs of discomfort and irritation were beginning to appear on Badler's face.
これはどういうことだ？
ええ、ですからベアトリーチェ様が親方様をねぎらおうと。
Sweat was starting to show up on Kumasawa's forehead. She was also feeling uneasy. When he noticed, Badler realized it wasn't just his imagination. Beato turned her back to Badler and stuck a corkscrew to the champagne bottle. Then she showed it to Badler.
お父様、第6のゲームの完成、
I wonder if he's gonna snap on her,
誠におめでとうございます。
yell at her, don't call me that.
必ずや宿敵、フルドエリカに勝利することを祈願して、これを捧げます。
Pop. When presented with a champagne bottle and a sound like that, anyone would think the cork had been pulled out. However, it wasn't the cork, it was the bottom of the bottle. The high-quality champagne that Beato had procured splashed out all over the floor and her dress. Is that Badler just smashing things with his mind? Like just, ah! Then the same sound repeated several more times. Each time, one of the plates of food on the table was knocked into the air. I think he's starting to lose it.
お父様、
And she's not making it any
お気に召しま
better.
せんでしたか？
お前は誰だ？
私はベアトリーチェでございます。お父様のために生まれてまいりました。
違う。こいつは誰だ？ベアトじゃない。そして俺をお父様なんて呼ぶな。これはどういうことだ？何なんだこれは。ベアトを蘇らせたんじゃなかったのか？源氏、これはどういうことだ？
恐れながら紛れもなくそのお方はベアトリーチェ様でございます。
そんなはずあるか。これのどこがベアトなんだ。全然違う。偽物だ。
いいえ、ベアトリーチェ様でござい
Okay,
ます。
so Genji's saying, I mean, and Genji was around when 1967 was when the Beatrice Kumadorian was there. Like, he would have met her. I imagine that the servants did go out and, you know, bring her things, so he knows, like, who the true Beatrice is, and he's probably like, that's her.
ゲーム版のルールに従い生み出され
Okay, but he's also saying in
紛
accordance
れ
with the
もな
rules
く
of the
ベ
game
アト
board.
リーチェ様ご自身でございます。
But of the rules of this game board, the fact that he solved the mystery, so, like, is this... The other ones were a different version of her, and this is like, is this the real her?
いや、こんなのはベアトじゃない。ベアトってのはもっとおかしな喋り方をして、品のない笑いをして、それから。
That's the untainted one. That's the one before the sin happened that turned her into the one that we know.
いいえ、間違いなくベアトリーチェ様ご自身でございます。
じゃあどうしてこんな喋り方をする？どうして俺をお父様なんて呼ぶんだ？
Okay, there's like, when you think about it a lot, when you think the father thing, like if this is the actual Beatrice, if this is like the closest version of her, And she's calling Badler father. Because, I'm just... What does that mean? Does that imply... Okay, I have to think about this, because it's like, is this the Beatrice? Because the Beatrice from 1967 is dead. And even if she wasn't dead, 1967, it'd be 19 years later, she would be a lot older. So, like, I'm so confused. The father thing, because I'm thinking, like, the only one that knew that Beatrice was that Kumadorian would have been Kinzo and the servants. So, like, is Kinzo Beatrice's father? Or did he, like, have a weird thing where, like, he had her call him father? I'm so confused.
ベアトリーチェ様はお生まれになったばかりでございます。かつてのような振る舞いをいきなり期待されるのはあまりに酷というものでございます。
まだ記憶が戻らないということなのか。
親方様。
But, like, Kumasawa would have definitely met Beatrice as well. She certainly would have, I imagine. Not just Genji. Maybe Genji was the only one who was able to see her because he's the most trusted one, but maybe Kumasawa met her as well. So maybe Kumasawa hadn't met that Beatrice, but Genji had and was like, no, that is her.
確かにこの方はベアトリーチェ様ご自身です。しかし、親方様がよくご存知のベアトリーチェ様ではありません。
どういう意味だ。俺はゲームマスターなんだろ。どうしてベアトを蘇らせられないんだ。
ええ、確かに蘇りましたとも。しかしかつてのベアトリーチェ様は1000年を経られたベアトリーチェ様。一方こちらのベアトリーチェ様はご本人なれど生まれたばかり。違う人間のように見えるのは致し方ないことでございます。
じゃあどうやったらあのベアトは蘇るんだ。体はあるここに。魂はどうやれば蘇る。
同じ1000年の人生を歩めばかつてと同じベアトリーチェ様にもなるでしょう。
1000年を待てと。
人の性格は生まれながらだけのものではありません。その後の生き方や経験によっていかようにも変わります。
Alright, so we're bringing this whole thing up. It's just like, things can happen to you. You know, you can be born one way and then you can have a traumatic experience or something happen to you that, like, imprints on you and basically changes who you would have been. This is the Beato. This has to be like the Beato before the sin, right?
わかるわ。同じ人間が2人いたとしても、生い立ちで人はいくらでも変わる。本来は同じ人間であるにもかかわらず、その生い立ちによって、
This feels very important right now. Like,
本来人は人であり、人格そのものを指して人とは呼びません。しかし人格を人だと認める人間たちにとって、それはさながら他人のようなものでしょう。
Like, are they talking about a split personality thing here? Like, what? You know?
違いねえですな。
I should be writing my notes, like, rather than do it at the end, I should be, like, taking stuff down from the beginning so that stuff doesn't slip by, because I'm like, they're really hammering the thing about, like, the Beatrice, you know, this one versus the one that we know, and how things can change a person, and they can become a completely different person. This seems, like, super key to like, figuring out what's going on here.
お嬢だって12年前の気の毒な一件がなけりゃ今頃は笑顔が似合うキュートな女の子だったかもしれねえ。
失礼ね。今だって十分キュートだってば。
I understand. If a personality is what makes a person in our eyes, You can say that a second personality is a different person entirely, even if it inhabits the same flesh body. At the very least, I'm a completely different person than I used to be 12 years ago. If my family had come home 12 years ago, then the Angie that resulted would surely be a completely different person from me. Even the same human can become different people. In fact, depending on their upbringing and endless possibilities, they can become an endless number of different people. So just because this is the same Beato, that's no guarantee at all that she'll be the Beato that Oni-chan knows so well.
ましてやベアトリーチェは1000年を経た魔女
But then it's the 1,000-year thing that throws me off. Like, it wasn't actually 1,000 years, right? She's not actually a 1,000-year-old witch.
人は3日あれば死ぬことだって生まれ変わることだってできるそれが1000年じゃどうにもならないわねあなたはなかなかできる読者のようですね波の読者相手だったら同一の人間であってもその生い立ちと時間によって別人になりうることを説明するために数百ページを割かねばならぬというのに
Yeah, they're really hammering this in, so
あまり読者をなめないで
I feel like this is also like a fourth wall breaking thing where she's just like, most people would need a lot of time to figure this stuff out, and then Angie be like, don't underestimate the readers.
私たちはただ読んでるだけじゃない読んで考えてるの100人に読ませれば90人くらいは読めるしかし意味がわかるのは50人そしてそこからさらに考えられるのは20人もいないよく噛んで飲み込みなさいとただそれだけの話なのにしかしあなたはどうやらその貴重な20人の中の一人らしいだからここへ招いたのです人の子よ
It was hard to actually like this Hachijo Toya person. However, though this forgery she had written was still in its first stages, it definitely felt as though it had something very similar to the tales in those message bottles. Speaking metaphorically, one might call it a scent, an indescribable stern atmosphere like a stuffy library. The Beatrice who wrote the message bottles and Hachijo Toya are different people, and yet this has the same scent as that tale. I see. This is why some of those curious witch hunters are so intensely devoted to her. Their keen sense of smell was able to sniff out that familiar scent.
さどうぞ続きを読んで文字を追うあなたの顔を見るのが何よりも楽しいのそして言葉を交わし合うことも物書きは感想に飢えてるってのは本当ねでも申し訳ないけどこんな分厚い原稿を延々と読んでる時間はないのそれより私はあなたに時間なんていくらでもあるでしょうに
Both the second hand and the pendulum on the ornate clock behind Hachijo had been moving the whole time. However, absolutely no time had passed for a while now. Only about 3 minutes had gone by since the first time she had entered the room.
ね時間など気にすることもないでしょあなたが読み終わるまで全ての時間はあなたを追い立てない
ああじゃあ次のページ次のページ
Amakusa badgered me to turn the page, so I returned to the world of the tale once more. You'd think that she would be more wanting to, like, see what happens next with the story, considering it has to do with her brother. Why does her tale have the same scent as Beatrice's, I wonder? Is it because she actually has reached the truth as she claims? Does this mean that anyone who knows the truth could create an endless number of message bottles? Is that what the Catbox world is like? I see. Maybe she really is an endless witch herself. In fact, maybe another who knows the truth can become an endless witch. Or anyone. An endless tale created by endless witches. The 2 days starting on October 4th, 1986, where my family is being toyed with endlessly. I have to end it. I have to find a hint of the truth from within this story and end this endless tale.
どうだベアト俺の作った第6のゲームは
Well, she looks like the other one, but I doubt she actually is. I think she's just kind of doing what Battler is like. I want you to look like this. I want you to pose like this. Basically, like his little doll being like, I want you to be like the old Beatrice.
まあ素直に褒めるやつじゃないもんな。せいぜい無能なりにそこそこ頑張ったではないかってとこだろうぜ。
無能なりにそこそこ頑張ったではないか。
Alright, yeah, she is just literally copying what he tells her to.
ゲームマスターの立場になってよくわかったぜ。お前も毎回随分と苦労してやがったんだってな。ゲームを作るのは楽なことではない。よもやそなたとそれをねぎらい合う日が来ようとはな。
ゲームを作るのは楽なことではない。よもやそなたとそれをねぎらい合う日が来ようとはな。
違う。こんなのはベアトじゃない。
Battler slammed hard on the desk, but the piece Beato showed no reaction. After all, Battler hadn't ordered her to react. It was easy to revive that Beato was a piece. However, it would only move according to Battler's wishes. Having a conversation with it was no different from talking to himself. The Game Master could summon any kind of piece. He could move those pieces in any way he wanted, reigning as an absolute god. However, for that very reason, they were just pieces. That made it unbelievably lonely and sad.
お前はたくさんの家具たちやいろいろな物語を紡ぎ出してきた。
Yeah, just like with Beato and Maria, you know, using their magic was just to escape a sad world, a lonely world.
俺はそれを見て、お前はきっとさぞや楽しいだろうなと思っていた。
だが違う。
お前は信じられないくらいに孤独だったんだ。
お前にとって俺という自らに反逆する対戦相手がどれほど愉快なものか、今の俺には痛いほど理解できる。
あの礼儀正しいおかしなベアトは確かにお前なんだろうな。1000年前の。しかし別人だ。お前の姿に瓜二つだからこそむしろ許せない。辛い。
しかしコマではないから俺の意志に背ける。
コマのお前なんかよりあのベアトの方がはるかに血は通ってるだろうぜ。それは認める。だが違うんだ。あれはお前じゃない。お前の生き別れの妹か何かで全くの別人なんだ。だからむしろどうしても受け入れられない。
As much as he hated this piece Beato, Battler felt an even stronger dislike for the chick Beato. Even after a whole 1,000 years, she still wouldn't become the original Beato. Even if she were ordered to act like the original Beato, it would just be an imitation. This was a very similar but separate person, and definitely not Beato herself. Then, in the previous game, Beato really did disappear for all eternity. Even after becoming the Game Master, there was no way to revive her.
笑えよ、この無様な俺を。
Just give it a rest already. You're just an illusion who won't laugh unless I order it. You can't even continue to laugh unless I keep on ordering it. Just disappear. On Rokkenjima this day, or rather, this time around, was the same as any other. The typhoon would be coming very soon. The clouds hadn't yet grown thick, but they were moving quickly. The only thing on Natsui's mind was the plan to cover up Kinzo's absence this year as well. Kraus appeared to have suffered a stomachache from the stress and was resting in his room. Jessica and Kumasawa had left in a boat to go shopping and greet the incoming relatives on Nijima. The servants had been busy since the early morning in preparation for the family conference, the greatest event of the year. Shannon and Canon were getting the guest house ready.
親族の方々を止めるならお屋敷の客室で十分だろうね。
そうね。こっちのお掃除大変だもんね。でもゲストハウスのお掃除は好き。
奥様や他のムカつく使用人もいないから静かでいいもんね。
Shannon gave a non-committal smile as she performed a detailed examination of the guest room. Did we forget to clean anything? Do we need to restock anything? She diligently gave the room one final check over.
昨夜も入念に点検したじゃないか。姉さんは本当にマメだな。
こういう日に限って油断するといたずらされるの。いざって時、大切なものが見つからなかったり、閉めておいたはずのものが開いてたり。
姉さんはそそっかしいからね。よく確認しながら仕事をしないからだよ。
So according to Canon, she's both diligent and careless.
だから私と一緒に点検してくれてるんだよね。ありがとう。
別に感謝されることじゃないよ。姉さんがしっかりしてくれれば僕まで付き合わなくて済む。
本当は私と一緒にいたいんだよね。甘えん坊さんなんだから。
そんなんじゃないってば。姉さんは最近ジョージ様のことで浮かれてるみたいだからね。ミスが多そうで見てられないだけだよ。
カノン君、ちょっとおしゃべりしよっか。
ダメだよ。仕事中だよ。
私とジョージ様のことばかり茶化して、カノン君とジェシカ様はどうなの？
別に何もないよ。そんなことよりちゃんと仕事は。
Canon was very obviously trying to change the subject, so Shannon snuck up behind him and pushed him down onto the bed.
お嬢様に一緒に親族の方々をお迎えに行こうって誘われたのに、どうして？
仕事があるし。
嘘。仕事なんか何もないくせに。
Shannon and Canon had switched roles. Normally, Canon was the one in control, but when it came to romance, it was the opposite. As Shannon had said, Jessica and Canon were supposed to have been the ones to go greet the relatives at the Nijima harbor. However, Canon had suddenly claimed he had work to do, so Kumasawa had gone and said, I'm sure Kumasawa was quite happy to be like, oh, I don't have to work and I get to go shopping? Yeah. Canon didn't have any work to do. Shannon knew this.
お嬢様、言ってた。文化祭の時のことがあっても、やっぱりカノン君が好きだって。
僕は家具なのに。
We've kind of gotten away from the furniture stuff, haven't we? Like, hasn't really been mentioned lately.
そうだね。
That's also because there hasn't really been too much focus on the servants in the past couple of games.
私も家具だね。
なのに姉さんは人間と恋をしてる。できるわけなんてないのに。
そうかな。そう決めつけてるから私たちは家具なんじゃないかな。
僕はジェシカお嬢様のことを何とも思ってない。お仕えする後宮家のご令嬢だとしか思ってない。
本当に？
本当さ。何？
私ね、ひょっとすると今夜ジョージ様に求婚されるかもしれない。
Shannon wore an incredibly peaceful smile on her face, but Canon could tell that there was no way she'd let him change the subject. Canon realized she must have made him help out here in the guest house in order to talk to him about this, and he clicked his tongue softly.
家具のくせに人間と結婚なんかできるつもりなの？
できると思う。
無理だね。
どうして？
ジョージ様の描く未来の夢を姉さんは叶えられない。
それは。
My issue, if I was her sibling, would be more like, you are also going to marry a man who is 24 years old, you are 16, and he has like a position of power over you. Not the furniture thing, but I guess this orphanage that they came from must have brainwashed them very well.
僕たちは人間じゃない。それに劣る家具。ジョージ様は姉さんを人間だと思い込んでるだけ。
それはそうかもしれないけど。
今日までよく騙し通してこれたものだと思うよ。そうやっていつまでジョージ様を騙し通せるつもりなの？自分が家具であることを未だに話せない姉さんが。
家具とか人間とかそんなの関係ない。ジョージ様は私の全てを受け止めてくれると思うの。
それを確かめる勇気もないくせに。
私ね、求婚受けてみようと思うの。
As Shannon looked up at the ceiling, she spoke of the imagined future that she and George would create. Though some anxiety over the future appeared on her face, so did joy from discovering what it was like to live with love. As Canon watched this vivid dream he was being shown, he knew that none of his words would reach Shannon anymore.
好きにしたらいいよ。姉さんは一度言い出したらどこまでも頑固だから。
私の生きたいように生きてみたい。もう家具だからとか人間だからとかそういうのに怯えるのはやめようと思うの。
Canon walked over to the window silently. He saw the rose garden filled with boring, gray flowers in bloom. He understood that Shannon was acting above her place, and he knew her tale had no chance of a happy ending. However, he also knew that now Shannon had made her decision. No words of his could change her mind.
なら、僕が言えることなんて何もないよ。やめろと言っても姉さんは聞かない。好きにすればと言えば好きにする。なんで僕にそんな話をするのさ。僕の答えなんて姉さんは何も求めてないじゃないか。
私が知りたいのはカノン君のお嬢様への気持ちなの。
僕は姉さんたちとは何の関係もないよ。
カノン君は本当にお嬢様のことは何とも思っていないの？
思ってないって何度も言ってるよ。
嘘？
どうして嘘だってわかるの？
わかるもん。姉さんだもん。
わからないよ、僕の気持ちなんて。
わかるよ。カノン君のことなら私は何でもわかる。
本当にわかってるならどうして聞くんだよ。姉さんはジョージ様のことでもう胸も頭もいっぱいじゃないか。そして僕もそんな一途な姉さんが大好きなんだ。だから僕なりに応援してるんじゃないか。
I guess the only way Canon knows how is to just constantly shoot her down and say that it will never work out.
そうでなかったら僕だってお嬢様を好きになりたかった。
Canon finally turned to face her, honestly and openly telling her his real emotions. That was what Shannon had wanted to hear, and having heard it, she closed in even further on Canon's true feelings.
そんな言い方じゃダメ。許さない。
じゃあどうすればいいんだよ。なんて言えばいいんだよ。
好きになりたかったなんて言い方でごまかさないで。カノン君の素直な気持ちをそのまま口にすればいいの。
僕には眩しすぎるんだよ、お嬢様が。太陽のようで生き様が眩しすぎて。 そんなお嬢様が好きなんだ。
Oh, he said it. Not, I would have loved to fall for her. He loves that about her.
そんなお嬢様に手を差し伸べられて共に歩こうと言ってもらえて嬉しかった。嬉しいんだ。
好きなんだよね。
あ、好きさ。
Alright, he's saying it straight up.
お嬢様が大好きだ。
Finally, Canon confessed his feelings in their entirety. In fact, by saying it aloud, he finally understood how he truly felt. As passionate tears welled up in his eyes, Canon finally accepted it. He couldn't stop the tears from dripping down his face.
お嬢様も僕もこの島に閉じ込められて何の希望もなく生きてるのは全く同じだった。なのにお嬢様は自らの道を自ら照らし、自らの足で運命を切り開くんだ。それが眩しくて羨ましくて、お嬢様と一緒にならこんなみすぼらしい自分じゃない別な本当の自分を見つけられそうな気がして。
お嬢様の告白を拒絶して悲しかった。
悲しかった。自分につく嘘がこんなにも辛くて悔しくて悲しいなんて知らなかった。そして僕のそんな嘘がお嬢様を傷つけたのがたまらなく許せなかった。そんな自分にもう二度と恋をする資格なんてないと思ってた。
あるよ、恋の資格はね。自分だけが与えられるの。家具だからダメとかそんなの関係ない。ダメだって自分で決めたらもうダメなの。決めつけちゃダメ。だから私は与えたよ、この身の程知らずな家具の身に恋の資格を。だからカノン君にだってあるよ。
恋をする資格が。
うん、あなたにあげられないなら私があげる。
ありがとう。僕はやっと海が見られる気がする。
きっとジョージ様は今夜私に求婚すると思う。求婚を私は受けてこの島を出てジョージ様と新しい天地で新しい生活をするつもり。
それが姉さんの選んだ道だというなら僕に何も言えるわけがない。
この島を出て、そしてこの島へは二度と帰らない。カノン君とはお別れになる。
そうだね、僕たちはお別れだね。
She can't come visit? I imagine the family conferences will still be happening, maybe? Although I guess if, once they figure out that Kenzo is dead, I assume there'd be no need for the family conferences anymore, but George would never come back and visit again? She just wants to leave that badly and be like, peace out, I hate this place, never again?
もしカノン君が心の底からお嬢様を愛していて、それが私のジョージさんへの思いと同じかそれ以上だと言えるなら、私はあなたと決着をつけなきゃならない。
She sounds like she's about to throw down. They gonna fight?
姉さん、
それがお互いのため。カノン君の思いを私を理由に諦めないで。
僕のわがままが姉さんの幸せを傷つけるかもしれないのに。
私も自覚してるよ。私の幸せがカノン君を傷つけることを。
We have no choice but to hurt each other. As she said this, Shannon turned her back to Canon. As Canon watched Shannon from behind, he was struck by her strength and the sisterly love she showed in still thinking of him despite everything.
姉さん、僕は姉さんと一緒で。
私もだよ。君がいてくれたから今日まで頑張れた。だからジョージさんとも出会えた。
僕も姉さんが教えてくれたからお嬢様の眩しさに気がつけた。
私は 自分の思いを曲げない。その気持ちだけを見つめて、他を無視して。
Wow.
心を
Wow.
踏みにじることから
Shannon is
目
quiet.
をそらさない。
She is just quietly ruthless. Damn.
僕も姉さんを理由に自分の気持ちをもう
私の恋が実っても、君の恋が実っても、私たちは互いを祝福しよう。
Why does it have to be one or the other? Why can't they both be with the ones that they love? Is that like an unwritten rule that one has to stay on the island, the other gets to go and live their life? I mean, if Canon was with Jessica, like they both, Jessica still lives on the island. He could stay there.
約束する。そして僕が勝ったらお嬢様を愛し姉さんを大切にする。
ありがとう。でも、私が勝ったら、君と島を忘れて、ここ
Damn.
を永遠に出ていく。
Damn. She's so harsh. Like, Canon's the one who's being, like, pretty sweet about it. And then Shan just, like, fuck this place. Fuck you. I'm out. Like, I've got my golden goose. I'm out of here.
勝ったら自分の恋に全力を。たとえそれが報われない恋だと知っていても。
私たちは、
家具じゃ
ない。
The boat carrying the relatives docked at Rokkenjima's harbor. They left the boat one by one, making fun of Badler. Goda wasn't the only one to greet them. Canon was there too.
皆様、ご無沙汰をしております。ロッケン島へようこそいらっしゃいました。
長旅お疲れ様でした。
そうそう、お上手ですよ。
Goda complimented Canon in a whisper. Canon ignored this, looking just a little sour, and continued to greet the incoming relatives.
バトラ君はゴーダさんもカノン君も初めてだよね。
マリアもバトラ初めて。
ゴーダさんは凄腕のシェフでいらっしゃるんだぜ。この島に来る唯一の楽しみさ。
光栄でございます。バトラ様、どうか滞在中のお食事はご期待いただければ幸いです。
そりゃ楽しみだぜ。よろしく。
ガノン君もお久しぶりね。今日は元気そうね。よかった。
そうでしょうか。
そうね。顔色が悪くないわ。血色がいいというか、目つきが凛々しくなったというか。
成長期なんだろ。そうして少年は大人になってくんだな。
普段のあんたは今にも貧血で倒れちゃいそうな顔ばっかしてるのに、今日は少し違うわ。
正気があるんや。男子は3日あれや成長するもんなんやで。カノン君も少しずつたくましくなってるっちゅうことやな。
からかわれてないわよ。
It sounds, I was just about to say, it's like a little bit. This would be like my family. Just like subtly roasting someone with compliments, but a little bit of like making fun a little bit at the same time.
みんな褒めてるのよ。
Canon had sworn that starting today, he would start changing the way he lived bit by bit. However, he had only meant to change within himself, and hadn't expected that it would show on the outside. He was a bit shocked to hear his expression had changed so much, that people had apparently noticed as soon as he opened his mouth. No, maybe the real surprise should have been that his normal expression looked so incredibly sullen in comparison. Are we actually going to see Canon smile at some point? I don't think we've seen him smile ever. Goda led the way up to the guest host. Canon brought up the rear, helping to carry some of Kumasawa's shopping.
僕、今日はそんなにも顔色がいいでしょうか。
私にもそう見えますよ。何かいいことありました？
Even Kumasawa was saying it. Canon, unable to see what his own face looked like, hung his head in embarrassment. When they reached the rose garden, they could see the others entering the guest house. Then he saw Jessica running towards him from there. Is even Milady Jessica going to say I'm in a good mood today? Canon hung his head even deeper, and so, almost as though he couldn't control himself, Canon spoke first.
僕はそんなにも違うんですか？
あほら、カノン君ってさ、積極的に挨拶とかする性分じゃないでしょ。だからみんな珍しいと思ったんじゃないかな。
先ほどはお嬢様にご同行できなくて申し訳ありませんでした。
あ、いいよいいよ。こっちこそ新島まで迎えに行くから付き合ってなんてくだらないことに誘ってごめん。カノン君だって今日の仕事いっぱいあるだろうし。
仕事は
Oh wow, is he straight up going to admit it right here? Is he going to profess his love right here?
お嬢様が眩しすぎて
Wow.
一緒にいることに耐えられないほど僕が弱かったからです。
Jessica faltered, uncertain what Canon was talking about. However, she realized that this was something too important to be laughed off.
何かあったの？カノン君。
シャノンが結婚するって。
そっか。
Wow, she's not even surprised. Well, I guess she knows that Shannon is with George, so.
やっぱりジョージ兄さん、今回でプロポーズするんだね。
Jessica thought that this change in Cannon's appearance was probably caused by a change in his state of mind. She thought he was sad he and Shannon would soon be parting ways. Cannon realized that Jessica was probably thinking this, so he spoke to her clearly and honestly, because he wanted her to know.
僕は姉さんがここを辞めることがあった時、自分も辞めると決めていました。
知ってるよ。じゃあカノン君も辞めちゃうの？
今はわからなくなりました。辞めたらお嬢様という太陽が照らしてくれた何かをまた見失ってしまいそうだから。
Jessica was stunned, unable to understand what he was saying. However, she did realize he was trying to tell her something important, and so she was able to accept that his next words were neither a lie nor a joke.
僕は
Wow.
ジェシカお嬢様のことが好きです。
私もだよ。
あなたの太陽のごとき生き方を僕も一緒に歩んでみたい。あなたとなら家具と蔑んだ自分から決別できるかもしれない気がする。
カノン君は家具じゃない。そして使用人になるために生まれてきたのでもない。年頃の男の子としてもっともっと人生を楽しんでいいはずなんだよ。私も眩しいや。カノン君が眩しくて目が見られない。
これが偽らざる僕の気持ちです。それを今までごまかしてきてすみませんでした。
Is this like, because this is Badler's game board, is this the love? There's a lot of love right from the beginning. Like, characters obviously are going to have to die, but it definitely is less focusing on the darker aspects.
僕の臆病さがお嬢様を傷つけたあの日をお詫びします。
いいよ。その言葉だけで私は嬉しい。
だから僕はお嬢様といつまでも一緒にいるために家具をやめようと思います。僕にそのための時間をください。最後にその弱さを許してください。
弱さなんてとんでもない。カノン君は見せてくれたよ。 今までの自分と決別したいっていうとびきりの勇気を。だから私は応援したいし、せかさずいつまでも待つよ。私が太陽になって君の道を照らせるなら、私だって君という人がいてくれたから、誰よりも眩しく輝いて君の瞳に私だけを映したいと思った。君がいなかったら私だって太陽になんてなれなかった。
See, I can get on board with this relationship. The George and Shannon one. At first I thought it was cute until you realize the ramifications of like the age and the power imbalance. And yes, there is a little bit too with Jessica, you know, being that she's the quote-unquote next head of the family, but at least like age-wise and maturity-wise, they're kind of alongside. They're the same. Like Jessica's a little bit immature, but at least the age doesn't squick me out. So there's that. Already that like elevates it, and they are just really cute.
だから待つよ、ずっと。
ありがとう、お嬢様。
お嬢様はもう嫌だな。
名前で呼んでもいいんですか？
二人っきりの時だけね。じゃないとカノン君に迷惑をかけるかもしれないし。
そうですね。
Oh, he smiled! We see a Canon smile.
姉さんたちもそうしてるらしいし。
シャノンが婚約するって話にならなかったら、こういうことは言ってくれなかった？
Canon hung his head at a loss for words for some time. You had to ruin the mood, Jessica. But it was true. If Shannon hadn't told him about the engagement, he probably wouldn't have been having this conversation at this moment.
はい。だからこそ真剣に考えることができました。
そんなこと言っちゃって。シャノンの話を聞いてて恋がしてみたくなっちゃった？
はい。
素直だな。
It's weird to see Canon smiling.
まあ私もシャノンたちを見てて羨ましいなと思って。
In truth, the real reason was different for both of them. They had been shown the courage that was needed to confess to the one they loved. This was the reason for both Canon and Jessica.
僕は何とお呼びすれば？
ジェシカがいいな。
呼びつけは照れます。
じゃさん付けでもいいから最初は言ってみて。ほらほら。
ジェシカさ
ん。うん。今はそれでいい。だから私もカノン君のことを名前で呼びたい。カノンじゃなくて。
Yeah, right?
本当の名前があるんでしょ?
We've learned Shannon's name of... Oh my gosh, what is it? It's been so long since I've heard her name. But yeah, we never learned Canon's name. Are we actually going to learn it this episode?
きっとカノンの「カ」が含まれた名前だと思うな。なんだろう。
ヨシアと
Oh!
言います。
Wow, straight up! Woo, there's a lot happening in this. Yoshia.
どういう字?
Jessica tried tracing out various characters on the palm of her hand. Then Canon used his own finger to write out his name on her hand.
これでヨシアと読みます。
ヨシアくんか。いい名前だね。私の変な名前と違って素敵だと思うよ。
そんなことありません。お嬢様のジェシカって名前だって。
あ、それもう一回言って。お嬢様のジェシカって。もう一回。
お嬢様のジェシカって名前だって。
Oh no. Jessica's already using her power over him and be like, say my name. I order you.
なんでもないよ。ありがとう、ヨシア。
The red, red flowers of the rose garden seemed to celebrate the two lovers whose feelings had finally connected. The scene was watched by one not human who gazed out quietly from beneath the rose garden arbor. Come to think of it, those two had never called each other by their names until now. Jessica hadn't known Canon's true name. Canon hadn't called Jessica by her name. By calling someone by their name, people acknowledge the worth of that person's soul. That is why names are sacred. Receiving permission to speak one means your soul has been acknowledged.
だから、お父様は名前を呼んでほしいと?
It's also because it's creepy as hell to call him father. No, that's probably wrong. I want to know why. Why does she call him father? There's probably some, like, really fucked up reason why. When father sees me, it reminds him of that other me, the past me. And I'm sure that me called father by his name. However, that probably doesn't mean father would be happy to hear me call him by his name. After all, I am me, as not the Beatrice my father knows well. What can I do to help father? How can I be useful to him? Like, I really hope the only reason that she's calling him father is because of the fact that, like, Badler created her. But I have a feeling that's not the case, and there's more to it than that. How can I be useful to him? That's the only reason I was born. Hanging her head, Beatrice sat all alone in the Golden Lands arbor that was next to the rose garden. This scene was watched by the witch of theater-going and her Miko as they sat across from each other.
かわいそうな子ね。
そなたがベアトに同情するとは思わなかった。
このベアトをかつてのベアトと同一人物と呼ぶのは酷な話だわ。これは全くの別人じゃない。
It may be that, by the rules, this Beato is the Beato. However, saying that would be horribly unfair to her.
かつての好敵視を蘇らせてこれでは、バトラも気がめいろうというもの。
お兄ちゃんの絶望も少しはわかる。でも、この子の気持ちもわかるの。人は決して誰かの身代わりにはなれない。それがたとえかつての自分であってもね。
Compared to the young boy and girl who had found new versions of themselves and called each other by their true names, this witch looked very feeble. The witch knew she was an illusion created in the image of the person she once was, and she also knew it would only hurt Badler to try and pretend to be that person. It must be sad that you can't be accepted for who you are, but you also can't be accepted if you try to be someone that you're not.
それでもこのベアトはバトラの役に立ちたいと思っている。けなげな話だ。
それがベアトリーチェという魔女の意味。
彼女はそうだと自称している。自分はバトラの役に立つために生まれてきたと。
お兄ちゃんのために生まれてきたベアトがやがては連続殺人を犯し、お兄ちゃんに永遠の拷問と称しておかしなゲームに引きずり込む。意味わかんないわ。
1000年を経れば人は別人にもなり得るとそなたも理解しているはず。
At the very least, Beatrice was once a pure creature who was born for Badler's sake. It is also very clear that in her current feeble state, she does not possess any of the courage or motivation needed to bring about those horrifying serial murders. If so, that means the sinister witch we all know must have changed during the 1,000 years since her birth.
1000年とか偉そうな単語がよく出てくるけど、魔女の世界ではどうも
Yes.
長い月日を示す別称として使われてる気がするわ。
Exactly, because if Beatrice is a human, then there's no way that the 1,000 years, it must not be like a literal thing. It's just got to be like a metaphor, right?
神の世界に近づけば近づくほどに時間の概念は曖昧になる。6年も1000年となるし、1000年がほんの一眠りにもなる。
Hey, 6 years. 6 years, hence the Badler sin 6 years ago. Okay.
ほんの2週間の月日でさえも100年の魔女を名乗るにふさわしい永遠となり得るのだ。
In other words, the pure Beato transformed into the cruel Beato during those 6 years that could be called 1,000. It's like dog years, those are witch years. 1,000 years is actually 6 human years. So, does that mean something bad happened during those 6 years that made her hate Oni-chan?
納得いかないわ。その6年間、お兄ちゃんはロッケン島は愚か、後ろ宮家の席から抜けてさえいるのよ。
And that's probably the issue,
その
right?
変化にお兄ちゃんは何の関係もない。全くの逆恨みだわ。
おや、こちらにおいででしたか。お紅茶でもお入れしましょうか。
熊沢さん、知りたいことがあります。
はいはい、何でしょうか。
私はベアトリーチェという名前なんで
And
す
this,
よね。
the outside of here, this looks like Kumadorian, so it's like even in this meta world, if this is the Beatrice that Rosa saw, it's like she's trapped here, she can't get out.
そうですとも。お嬢様はベアトリーチェ様でございますとも。
でもお父様が口にするベアトリーチェという人物は私のことではありません。
それは。
お父様は私にその人であってほしかったように思います。だから私がその人にどれほど似ていても別の人間なので失望されたのではないでしょうか。
そんなことはございませんよ。お嬢様はお嬢様、ベアトリーチェ様ご自身ですとも。新しくお生まれ変わりになるとき、以前の記憶を失ってしまっただけでございますよ。たとえ記憶をなくされようとも、お嬢様はベアトリーチェ様、親方様の愛されるお方と同一人物でございますとも。
その記憶というのはどうやれば取り戻すことができますか。
それは。
Beato looked at Kumasawa with hopeful eyes, as though praying she would tell her the way. Kumasawa averted her gaze unhelpfully, as though trying to say she would if only such a way existed.
取り戻すことができないなら、せめてお父様の愛したベアトリーチェがどのような人物だったかを教えてください。
それならお話はできますけれど。
私はお父様のために生まれてきました。
Okay, so she could use the red truth despite not being, or it says she is a witch with almost no abilities, but she can still use the red truth. I guess because she's Badler's piece, and he gives her permission to use red truth.
だからお父様の望む黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェになりたいんです。
ベアトリーチェ様。
私に魔法は使えません。でもお父様の望む魔女が使えるならそれを学びましょう。私はお父様の望む魔女になります。それがお父様に産んでもらったことへの私が示せる唯一のご恩返しです。
けなげじゃない。1000年を間違えなきゃ最高にいい子だわ。
魔女のヒナ、なかなか面白きかな。気に入ったぞエンジェ。そのヒナの娘に我が諸子を許すがいい。魔女の世界へ帰る扉を開いてやるがよかろうぞ。
彼女自身にかつての彼女の物語を朗読させようというわけね。なるほど、私も知りたいわ。黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェを作る物語。
いいでしょう。あなたが望むならば扉を再び開きましょう。
熊沢さん。
A spray of gold welled up around them. It was a cloud of gold butterflies. With a golden flash, the form of the old lady transformed to that of a witch. Oh, I forgot that Kumasawa was basically Virgilia.
あなたの進むべき道はあなたが決めなさい。それはおそらくバラの道。美しく咲き誇ったバラがあなたを祝福するかもしれないし、その棘であなたを苛むかもしれない。しかしそれでもあなたがいつかたどった道、その結果同じ1000年を経てもいい、異なる1000年を経てもいい。望むなら道を引き返してもいい。
進みます。私はこの庭で1000年お茶を飲んでいるだけで過ごしたくないんです。お父様のためにこのベアトリーチェは生まれてきました。だからお父様のために教えてください。黄金の魔女。
The great witch spread her arms, communicating Beatrice's unbending determination to the brilliant heavens. At that moment, a brilliant light covered the two of them, and before they knew it, they were in a strange study. There sat the great old witch who was the master of those archives, along with her Miko. Virgilia gave a deep and elegant bow.
拝謁、至極光栄に存じます。尊厳なる感激と戯曲と傍観の魔女、フェザリーヌ・アウグストゥス・アウローラ卿。表を上げよ、人の子よ。その娘にしばしの間我が諸子を自由に閲覧する資格を与えようぞ。我が巫女エンジェ、その方に世話を命ず。
はいはい、お任せを。我があるし、素直にそなたの物語が見たいと言えばいいのに。
感激の魔女の巫女よ、ベアトリーチェをお預けします。
よろしくお願いします。
It must be a little bit awkward after all the stuff Angie had to deal with before with Beatrice now. She's just so meek and childlike now.
あんたのなろうとしているベアトリーチェは彼女なりに何かを苦しんでいたわ。少なくとも今のあなたはその何かから解き放たれている。自らその枷を取り戻すために旅に出るの。
はい、私は黄金の魔女になりたいんです。それが私の生まれてきた理由です。
彼女の煉獄を巡る旅が快適であるよう、そして保護が与えられるよう、無限と有限の魔女プブリウス・ワルギリア・マロの名において要請します。
感激の魔女の巫女にして無限の魔女反言の魔女見習い、エンジェ・ベアトリーチェの名において了承する者なりやと奉ったり踏んだり蹴ったり。
Featherin snorted.
あなたもベアトリーチェという名を？
ええ、あなたのことはよく知ってるわ。
教えてください。
This is what happens when you jump into this game at chapter 6, like this Beatrice. She's like, I am so confused. I don't understand what's going on.
私がどんな私だったのか。
ええ、だから教えて。あなたがどうしてあなたになったのか。
この書庫にはこれまでのそなたのゲームの物語のかけらがすべて書物として収められている。それを読むことでそなたはこれまで何があったかのすべてを知ることができるだろう。
それを読めば私は黄金の魔女になれますか？
黄金の魔女を継承するには黄金の碑文を
Oh yeah, there's the epitaph. Forgot about that too. There's just so much in this game. I've given up on even trying to do the epitaph. there's too much crap that I have to try and figure out. The epitaph is just like, shove that to the back. It's already been solved. I need the game to just tell me what the epitaph is eventually.
そしてその試練はたとえベアトリーチェ本人だとしても免れることは許されぬ。
頑張ります。ですから私に書庫の本を読ませてください。
本当にけなげだわ。わざわざあんなのになんで戻りたがるんだ。
その私がどんな自分だかは知りません。でもその自分がお父様のお役に立てるなら私はそれになりたいです。
Angie sighed resignedly. She had no words with which to stop this girl from following her noble sense of purpose. After all, Angie was the Miko of the Witch of Theater Going. She could do nothing except watch over the stage. Yes, they weren't actually interfering with the play. This was just a bit of directing to shine the spotlight on the tale of Beato's past. Even this was nothing more than the Witch of Theater Going watching a play.
読めばそなたはかつてのベアトリーチェがどのような人物だったかを知るだろう。しかしそこから何を得られるかはそなたが決めるがよい。書庫にとどまるも自由、立ち去るも自由、再び戻ることさえも自由だ。その対価として私はそなたを感激する。
感激とは？
要するに好きにしていいって意味よ。
ありがとうございます。青草、
フェザリーヌって呼ぶと喜ぶわよ。
ありがとうございます。フェザリーヌ様。
After being welcomed in by Featherin, Beato set out on a journey to discover herself. That tale connected the old tale with the new one. It wove them together. The thousand-year-old tale about her returned to its starting point, becoming a snake eating its own tail. The ring of that snake began slowly, bit by bit, to turn into the shape of a small island floating on the sea. That island was Rokkenjima. The 1,000 years of the witch born on this island were tied to the island. Was it 1,000 years, or just 6? Or did this tale start even further back into the past? Beatrice went out on a journey to find herself. The wind had been strengthening since a while back. The breaking waves had grown fierce. The ferry boats probably wouldn't be coming back for a while now. The crashing thunder told that the island had been sealed off from the outside world. The thick rain poured down, mocking the fools outdoors who had to rush pathetically to find shelter. No longer would anyone be able to leave this island, and no longer would anyone be able to reach this island. No one, unless blessed with a miracle, aka ERIKA, showing up once again for her comeback. There was another flash of lightning. The retinas of all who saw it were filled with white. As that white faded away, an eerie silhouette pulled itself up at the raging water's edge. As though suddenly remembering, it coughed violently several times, filthily spitting out the seawater that had filled its stomach, and then tearing apart the velcro of her life jacket. I love that she has, like, this orchestral entrance, like this monster appearing on the island. She cast off the reason she'd been able to float here without so much as a thank you. I even love that she's got, like, the villain laugh as she enters.
いつも変わらぬ嵐での艦隊 実にグッドです。さあ楽しませてもらいますよ、バトラさん。
The annoying guest, wow. Straight up, I love it. I love how before she was like a little bit of a, what's the word I'm thinking of? She was like a novelty. They enjoyed her presence for a little while. It'd be like, oh, she's so much fun. She's lightening the mood. And now it's just like, I wonder how long it's going to be before they just get tired of her. All right, so we'll see if anything, since I've already checked her thing before. All right, so we're on the human side now. ERIKA fell from the pleasure boat Eternal Maid 2 mid-cruise in the waters near Rokkenjima. She washed up on Rokkenjima on October 4th, 1986. The Ushiromiya family welcomed her as a guest. She managed to drift to the island unharmed thanks to several miracles, including the life jacket she was wearing. The news about the drifter, FURUDO ERIKA, quickly spread across Rokkenjima. ERIKA was politely entertained, and it was decided she would be treated as a guest until the typhoon passed. In the dining hall, Goda's wonderful dinner had ended, and everyone was relaxing and enjoying some after-dinner coffee and cheese. Apparently, Badler was a bit relieved that ERIKA had come and turned into a good scapegoat. It drove away some of the attention he'd been getting piled on him for finally coming back after 6 years. In fact, she turned out to be very talkative. When the conversation turned to a sophisticated discussion of the mystery genre, even the adults were drawn in. She was apparently so well versed that even Nanjo, who had a vast knowledge of the subject, was impressed.
確かにな。嵐の孤島に洋館に不気味な一族。そこに雨宿りの探偵とくりゃ、もうお膳立てが揃ったも同然だぜ。
ご安心を。どんな難事件であっても解決してお見せしますので。それが探偵の務めです。
頼もしいじゃないか。むしろ何か怪事件が起こってほしいものだね。
Yeah, be careful what you wish for.
犠牲者役はごめん被るな。
That seems a little too on the nose, doesn't it?
あなた、不謹慎です。
まあ。
Now, are we going to have the mysterious man from 19 years ago? Will that make a reappearance in this one? And are we going to see it again? Depending on whose point of view we're seeing this from. Because we're definitely, so far it has not been Natsui focused. So, which I guess also makes me think like, was that the only time that the mysterious man ever entered the picture in any of these games? Was that something that actually happened, you know?
人間のミステリーの歴史なんてほんの100年足らず。そのトリックもアイデアもほんの数種の焼き直しですでに描くべきことなどありません。いかなる不可能犯罪、密室殺人が起ころうとも、すでに類型化されているどれかのトリックを形を変えただけに過ぎないのですから。まあそれでもミステリーが読み物として現代でも通用するのは、古典もろくすっぽ読まない付け焼き場の自称マニアが自分の不勉強ゆえに知らない古典トリックをさも新鮮であるかのように勘違いして大騒ぎしてるだけなんですが。
I feel personally attacked right now. Wow. I feel called out. Everyone couldn't help but gape at this imposing claim. If an aged critic had said it, that would have been one thing. But it showed incredible boldness for a young person like her to state that so strongly.
ミステリーなんてもう半世紀も前に終わったジャンルなんです。私に言わせればですが。でも不勉強なバカばっかりのおかげで私は探偵面ができるというわけです。
それを言ったら恋愛なんてシェイクスピアの時代に完成されてて以後は読む価値もないってことになるぜ。
そうですね。じゃあロミオとジュリエットさえ読んどけば恋愛なんてもう理解できたも同然ってことじゃないですか。
Oh, I don't know if I would use Romeo and Juliet as the like pinnacle of a romance story.
そんなわけねえさ。 本は読んだ数を競うものでもねえが、さりとてこれで十分だと威張るもんでもねえ。過去の古典の話ばかりで新書を読まねえのは、いわゆる悪しき解雇主義じゃねえのか。それこそ読書をサボる年寄りどもの言い訳だと思うぜ。
そうですね。私もバトラさん程度には本を読まないと言いまかされちゃいそうです。
俺本なんか読まねえし。
Badler chuckled, but Erika knew from the previous game that Badler was actually quite an avid reader, so his words felt like more of a challenge.
そんなにも推理自慢ならクイズとかパズルとかは得意そうだね。
Alright, now we're gonna get to the epitaph. What's gonna happen this time with the epitaph?
あー、マリアさ、ほらクイズとかの本持ってなかったっけ？
Picking up that Erika's arrogant statement had made the atmosphere a little tense, George smoothly changed the subject. She's gonna look at these and be like Maria's book. She'd be like, this is literally child's play. By now, it was more than clear she wasn't the charming guest she had appeared to be. Yeah, the facade dropped a lot quicker in this one, at least before she seemed to have people fooled up until the first murders. Maria pulled a book out of her bag that had quizzes and puzzles written in it and started posing them to everyone. It might have looked as though it would become a peaceful quiz party, but of course that wasn't what happened. In credit to all her big talking, Erika managed an impressive ratio of correct and immediate answers. Erika took complete control. Her bragging began to escalate more and more. George slightly regretted the choice he had made when changing the subject. I thought he was going to get into the epitaph, but okay. I feel like everybody knows an Erika, you know, someone who's like a one-upper. You think you know stuff, but they gotta be like, oh, I know more than you do.
トーナメント表を書くまでもありません。
The question, how many matches would you need for a tournament with 107 teams, was answered instantly by Erika.
これは問題というより知識です。参加チームから1を引いた数が必要な試合数という公式がありますので。
Oh, well, I mean, I didn't know that.
まあ、例題の4チームなら3試合、8チームなら7試合という数字を見た時点で法則性に気づいて当然ですが。
エリカすごい。
エリカお姉ちゃんでしょ。言ってごらん。
エリカお姉ちゃんすごい。
大したもんだな。なるほど。自称探偵は伊達じゃねえってわけだ。
まあ、探偵を気取るつもりならこの程度は。
すごいね。きっと将来は本物の探偵になれると思うよ。
まあ、もうそのつもりですが。
The cousins all thought about the answers to the questions, but Erika always answered first. Rosa thought it was a bit rude for Erika to say the answers out loud while people were thinking, instead of keeping them to herself. But since Erika was a guest, Rosa decided against mentioning it. In truth, Erika was perfectly aware of this when she answered the questions instantly. Each time, she would grin broadly, as though saying, "Is it really taking you all this long to solve such an easy problem?"
エリカちゃんは名探偵さんなんだから、あまり本気にならなくてもいいんじゃない？
そうですね。子供向けの問題なのにムキになってしまいました。気をつけますので、次の問題をお願いします。
よーし、今度は負けねえぞ。マリア、次の問題を頼む。
大きなチーズが1個あります。それをナイフで1回切り分けると2つになります。では、8個に切り分けるには最低何回切ればいいでしょう？
Okay, so a large piece of cheese. A single slice with a knife can split into 2 parts. The lowest number of slices you can make to cut it into 8 parts.
あ、僕はこれ知ってるよ。だから黙ってよっかな。
George, acting like the adult he was, set up a mood that would prevent people from answering right away, even if they knew the answer, in effect, sending a warning to ERIKA. It seemed ERIKA understood, and she averted her gaze, snorting derisively.
8個なら4回で切り分ければよいのでは?
Now that would be the obvious answer, though, right?
バカね。それが答えだったら問題にならないじゃない。
Yeah, so it's gotta be something you gotta think outside the box. You gotta think differently.
そういうことだな。こういうのは想定の回数より少なくできるものと相場が決まっている。しかしどうすればいいやら。
ああ、わかったわかった。こりゃチーズだからできることだな。
そうね。バースデーケーキでこれをやったら大喧嘩になるわね。
そやな。チーズならともかくケーキを切るにはその切り方じゃあかんな。
みんな答え分かってんのかよ。
I'm like Balor. Okay, I gotta think about this. So they're saying it's a big piece of cheese. Like, is it? I'm assuming it's like a block of cheese or like a wheel of cheese, and not like a slice. You know, that looks like a birthday cake slice, and then you have to cut that into smaller pieces.
くそ、わかんねえの俺だけかよ。
ああ、わかったぜ。
Even Jessica beat you. Oh, I'm saying this. I don't know it either.
なるほどね。3次元で考えなきゃダメなんだ。
Okay, three-dimensionally, and it's done because specifically it's done because it's cheese, not like a cake. Okay. I like how did Battler kind of make himself dumb in this one, unlike where Bernkastel actually made him very competent. Oh boy, okay.
ジェシカまでわかんねえ。どうすりゃいいんだ。
Okay. All right, so if I'm assuming it's like a wheel of cheese, so let me see. Okay, so 8 slices. You gotta think three-dimensionally. Okay. I'm just like... You can't see me. I'm miming it with my hands about like how would I go about slicing it. Three-dimensionally. You can't do it like a... Oh, okay. I think... Okay, so I'm assuming you have to... Okay. So cut it... like a cross, like a cross, or yeah, so like 1, 2, and then that would make 4 slices. And then if you cut horizontally, so you cut vertically, right, into like a cross at the top, and then if you slice it horizontally, then that divides that into 4 more slices. So 3? That's my guess.
マリア、答えわかるよ。ここに書いてあるもん。
I love Ari's like, I know it because I read the answer.
ほら、マリアだって答え見るまでわからなかったでしょ?
It's probably like a something even less than that. It's probably like even more of like a you gotta think outside the box.
わかる？バトラ君。
なるほど。私にも分かりました。これはチーズだからこそできることですな。
南條先生まで分かっちゃったのかよ。
Why is Battler saying even Dr. Nanjo? He's a doctor. He plays chess. I imagine he's pretty smart. Now, the Jessica thing I can imagine where it's like, what? Even Jessica got it?
ひょっとして俺だけ？俺だけが分かってない？
バトラさんの頭も少し火を通せばチーズみたいに柔らかになりそうですね。
ナイフは0回で手でちぎれるとかそういう答えじゃないんだろ？
なわけねえぜ。ナイフ以外では切れないチーズってことで。
チーズを立体的に想像するんだよ。
Alright, I hope I'm right about this, because they're saying the 3-dimension thing you can't, because if you try to do that with cake, it would just get all smushed and it wouldn't cut smoothly.
難しいなら紙ナプキンの裏に絵を描いてみるのもいいかもね。
大きなチーズが1個あるんだろう。それをナイフで8つに。ナイフは直線じゃなきゃ切っちゃダメ？
Oh, I didn't think about that, because I was going in straight lines.
そうよ。
Okay, that is correct.
ナイフは直線に切るだけ。まあ、でもヒントね。切り方は直線にじゃなきゃダメだけど、どこを切るかは自由なのよ。
どうやってナイフを入れればいいかいろいろ想像してみろ。
少々ひねくれたやり方を想像した方がいいだろうな。バトラ君のお手並みを拝見だ。
You have a large piece of cheese. How many times must you cut it with a knife to make 8 pieces? It's obvious you could do it in 4 cuts. Can it be done in even fewer cuts than that? The hint says it was something that could be done because it was cheese. If it were a birthday cake, you really wouldn't be allowed to do this.
Cheese.
This is the guy who figured out everything. He figured out the big riddle, he figured out everything, and he can't get this cheese puzzle.
チーズだからできる技。おう。おうおうおうおう。わかったわかった。すっかり騙されたぜ。頭が硬いとダメだな。
ようやくひらめいたようですね。それが正解だといいのですが。
チーズはナイフ以外では切れないんだよな。ナイフは直線だけで切るんだよな。それ以外に何も条件はないよな。なあ。
特にない。
よっしゃ、間違いない。かー、ひでえ問題だぜ。これはまるで謎々だ。
Isn't it a riddle? I thought it was a riddle.
上から切るばかりが脳じゃないってことだぜ。上から2回切って4分割。その状態で側面から切る。上段と下段分かれて4分割が倍の8分割。
Alright, I got it.
立体で考えないと出せない答えだね。つまり正解は3回さ。
え、そうなのか？俺
Wait,
1回だと思って。
one? What?
そらどんな魔法や。いくらなんでも1回は無理や。
これは謎々じゃなくて普通に算数的な問題よ。
おお、そうなのか。3回ってのはすぐに思いついたんだが、それじゃ簡単すぎて問題にならない。
Oh, so that's it. He's just thinking on another plane than the rest of us. He's too good. He's too smart.
バトラの答えの方が5分の答えより少ない。バトラが正解？ええ。
Oh,
そうです。
wait, what? You can?
バトラさんが正解です。
What? Erica looks like upset. She's like, I'm the only one who probably would have figured out that you could do it in 1, but Badler got it too.
正解は1回です。
Badler was happy that someone had confirmed his answer. However, at some point, Erica's face had lost its cheeriness.
私以外に1回と答えられる人間がいて、それがよりにもよってあなたとは。
エリカも答えは1回なのかよ。どうやらお前も相当ひねくれてるみたいだな。
Now fill it in for the rest of us dum-dums. How did you guys do that?
1個のチーズと聞いて、その形状を決めつけるのは実に愚かしいことですので。
できるわけないわ。お兄ちゃんの勘違いでしょ。3回未満でどうやって8等分するのよ。
愚かしや人の子よ。8つに分けろとは言っているが、等分にしろとは問うていない。
それにしたって不可能。
Yeah, I still don't understand.
ナイフ以外の方法できるの？
ナイフ以外では切れない。ナイフは直線に切らねばならないと条件がある。しかし逆に言えばそれ以外に条件はない。いや、そもそもチーズの形さえも示されてはいない。
That's true. I was assuming that it was like a block of cheese or something, but still, I don't understand how it can be done. Like, what kind of cheese? If it's like Swiss cheese, maybe? Like, I don't... I still don't think that that's possible.
そうか。みんなは大きなチーズが1個って聞いて、カマンベールみたいな平べったい円筒状のものを想像してたのか。俺は朝食のトーストの上に乗せるスライスチーズを想像していたぜ。
Okay, but I'm like, unless you stack unless you stack like 4 slices of that kind of cheese and then cut down the middle, I still don't understand how you can end up with 8.
ナイフで切り分けるような立派なチーズとは普段縁がねえからよ。
チーズの形状に条件は示されませんでした。出題者のミスです。おそらくマリアさんのその本にはいわゆる平べったい円筒状チーズの図面があるはずです。ある。ほら。
As Erika had guessed, the book Maria held had an illustration of a piece of cheese, just as Erika had described it. With cheese of this shape, 3 slices really would be the correct answer. You cut it into a cross pattern from the top to make 4 pieces. Then cut it from the side to double that and make 8 pieces. However, since this illusion hadn't been shown, the interpretation of the cheese had been left to the answerer.
確かにそうね。出題の時点でチーズの形状やその柔らかさなどには触れられていなかったわ。
そういうことです。どうやらチーズも頭も柔らかかったのはバトラさんの方だったようです。
わけわかんねえぜ。スライスチーズだったらどうしてナイフ1回で8個に分けられるんだよ。
お手元のペーパーナプキンで試してみたらどうですか。これをスライスチーズだと思って。
つまりよ、こうしてさ、蛇腹に折るわけさ。
Wow.
何回折れば8個になる。
Wow, that is 4D chess level thinking. Damn.
6回です。
The folded accordion style, you alternate between upward and downward folds. Once you've done this 6 times, it looks like the side of an accordion.
普通のチーズならこんなに折ったらそこでちぎれちまうところだが、ナイフ以外じゃちぎれないことになってんだろ。
ええ、問題ありません。ナイフ以外では決して切れぬ魔法のチーズですから。
その畳んだのも真上からバサッと一刀両断にすりゃ。
確かに8分割だ。
And they never said it had to be equal pieces of cheese, right?
ちょっと待てよ。これじゃ当分にはなってないぜ。
出題者は8つに切り分けるとしか言ってません。当分は条件に含まれませんでした。まあ折り方を工夫すれば当分も可能ですが、
Wow.
お頭の固い皆さんには説明が混乱するので省きます。
Damn. Pretty impressive. I guess Badler did make himself pretty smart. For a while, everyone was stunned. Badler had reached a far better answer than 3 by thinking of the problem as a riddle. ERIKA had already known both answers, and had even spotted a mistake made by the book. The others could do nothing but stare at the two in surprise.
すごいわ。頭が硬かったのは私たちなの？
これは完敗ですな。
私たちは3次元で考えたけれど、どうもバトラ君とエリカちゃんは
Yeah.
次元がもう一つ上だったみたいね。
Literally 4D. Yeah.
だいぶ魔女とのゲームで鍛えられたようじゃないですか。条件なき問題、すなわち赤き真実の外側はすべて観測者の自由自在、魔女の密室の感激を縫う基本中の基本。
何の話だ？小説か何かの引用か？
まあそういうことにしておきます。それにしてもどなたの脳みそもカチンコチンの石ころチーズってわけですね。
Without any signs of restraint, ERIKA looked at everyone and laughed sarcastically. Only Maria didn't notice the venom in that laugh as she happily turned to the next page.
はい、じゃあ次の問題ね。3つのコップと6枚のコインがあります。3つのコップそれぞれにコインが1枚、2枚、3枚になるように分けてください。
Okay, well that's easy enough to do. I imagine it's probably going to get more complicated.
おいおい、そんなの簡単じゃねえかよ。最初のコップにコインを1枚、次のコップに2枚、最後のコップに3枚入れて出来上がりだぜ。
かそれを5枚のコインでもできるでしょうか。
Can you cut them with a knife and make them smaller coins?
また陳腐な問題が出てきましたね。まさか皆さんこの程度の問題に。
Wow, ERIKA didn't last very long before she started getting really cocky again. By now, ERIKA was gazing around with an unpleasant look, acting in a manner that was completely inappropriate both for a guest and for someone of her age. I just do imagine that she, when nobody was looking, she looked at Maria's book and just looked at all the answers beforehand. She was no longer a guest who would be staying until the storm passed. She had transformed into an annoying guest who wouldn't leave until the storm passed. I like implying like she's not gonna stay. Like they're just gonna yeet her out into the ocean again. Be like, alright, we've had enough of you. You've been here for what, like 2 hours? And we're like, you can't with you anymore. Everyone thought this, but they were unable to say it aloud.
コインの問題っていうと、ほら、お箸の使い方がうまいかどうかは、コインをお箸で掴めるかどうかでわかるそうだね。
Oh, Chopsticks, he's activated. That's her kryptonite. That and riddles is like her two things in mystery.
そうです。お箸は世界で最も優雅な食器です。突き刺し、引きちぎって口に運ぶナイフとフォークなんて野蛮の極み。お箸こそが最高です。私の箸使いこそが芸術。
Jessica was about to say, isn't a chopstick just a stick? But stopped herself just in time. She realized it was best to let George take control for now. It's like George knows. He knows her little trigger points, and he's like, okay, I didn't do so well with the riddle thing, so let's hope this works out better.
小銭あるけど、ちょっと僕と競争してみない？僕もお箸の持ち方には厳しいんだ。
そやな。ジョージの箸は随分厳しく教えたんや。
確かにテーブルマナーは育ちが出てしまうものだ。エリカさんの持ち方もなかなかに良い。
俺の小銭も貸してやるぜ。枚数が多い方が面白いだろ。
ジェシカ、よく見て覚えなさい。
うせえぜ。
よし、競争しよう。ここにある小銭をどれだけ多く自分のお皿に移せるか。
望むところです。お箸。
Oh my gosh. She's a little too excited by chopsticks. To an unhealthy degree. This time, George had steered the conversation into a good direction. Everyone else understood, and they helped to egg on this chopstick fight and change the subject. They were fully aware by now that ERIKA was extremely proud of her intelligence, and apparently she had the bad habit of using that to look down on other people. She spun her chopsticks around her finger with the dexterity of a stage magician, staring at the coins scattered on the table like a dog waiting for permission to eat the food placed before them. Alright, so that will do it for this episode. So we have Beato, Chick Beato, trying to find out more about her past and trying to become the Beatrice that Badler wants, still with that creepy father stuff. I'm hoping we're going to get some more information on that, because I feel like that might be, like, a big thing in this. And we have officially begun the game now. We have the return of ERIKA, the detective, and she didn't even wait before she just became insufferable to everybody, and she is gunning after Badler. And I mean, based on how this episode began, I'm guessing it didn't go well for Badler. So, alright, so we're going to wrap that up here. I'm excited to learn more about the story and just ERIKA's shenanigans with the rest of the Ushiromiya family. So stay tuned next week for, I'm assuming we're going to see how Badler's game board, how the murders are going to play out this time. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned next week for part 63. Until then, bye. Special shoutouts to my top tier patrons: Nana, Kiori Makoto, Revealing Storm, Tequila Mockingbird, Jared Fan, Izzy Ibo, Asborn Kennedy, Harry Gazif, iCognito, Locus Corollas, and Mad Goldsmith.